Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet place in the cosmos where your thoughts can unwind and knowledge becomes a soft lullaby for the night. Tonight's journey will take us into the hidden world of your sleeping mind, a place where consciousness loosens its grip on the waking world and begins to drift through layers of memory, emotion, imagination, and perhaps something even deeper. But before you settle in and get cozy, I'd love if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Only if you truly find these quiet explorations enjoyable. And when you're ready, feel free to leave a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the night. It's always such a joy to see the places we gather from, each of us resting inside our own little pocket of time. Now, dim the lights if you'd like. Maybe turn on a fan for a gentle background hum, and let yourself settle into a comfortable position. Think of this as a slow descent into a soft, moonlit landscape, where thoughts drift like clouds, and the familiar world grows quieter with every breath. And if your mind begins to wander at any point, that's perfectly fine. Let it drift. We'll still be here, quietly unfolding the story of what truly happens to your consciousness when you sleep. There is a moment each night, so subtle and fleeting that most of us never notice it, when the world outside begins to dissolve and the world inside grows louder. It is not a switch being flipped, but more like the slow dimming of lanterns in a quiet hallway. One by one, the lights of attention fade, and consciousness loosens its grip on the day. You may have felt this moment before, the way a thought suddenly slurs into an image, or how a list of tasks gently reshapes itself into something resembling a dream. This is the threshold, the slipping between worlds moment scientists call the hypnagogic state. But here, we can simply think of it as the first doorway your mind passes through when it begins its nighttime wandering. What makes this moment so mysterious is that consciousness doesn't fall all at once. Instead, it unravels in threads. Some parts of the brain begin to rest early, while others stay awake a little longer, as if double-checking that the world is safe before letting go. This uneven drifting is something researchers sometimes call local sleep. But rather than picturing something technical, imagine a village at dusk. A few windows are already dark, others still glow faintly, and the town hasn't fully decided whether it wants to sleep or stay awake. Inside your mind, the same thing happens. Regions used for reasoning and planning begin to grow quiet, while areas tied to sound, memory, or imagery may flicker a little longer. This is why your thoughts during these moments seem soft around the edges, not quite anchored to the real world. They are thoughts loosening, unthreading themselves from the weight of your waking identity. You may have experienced sudden twitches just as you were drifting off, the feeling of stumbling or dropping from a height, even though your body lies perfectly still. It is not a message, not a warning, just a small misfire as your brain hands control over to deeper rhythms. For a brief second, the waking mind tries to hold on, to steady itself before surrendering. These small jolts are like echoes of a world you're leaving behind. As your breathing slows and your muscles soften, consciousness begins to slip into a new configuration. The mind, once focused outward like a lighthouse, turns its beam inward. The noises of the day become distant. The chatter of responsibilities fades. You no longer go out to meet the world. Instead, the world of the mind begins to come to you. Images appear without being summoned, forming like mist on still water. Sometimes they are shapes or colours. Other times they're fragments of memories, faces, voices, pieces of conversations. And occasionally something entirely unfamiliar appears, something you cannot trace to any waking experience. These are the seeds from which dreams will grow later in the night. During this descent, time itself becomes a little strange. A minute may feel long and heavy, like a slow exhale, while several moments can pass without you noticing at all. This distortion is gentle, almost soothing, as if the mind is beginning to loosen its ties to the linear world. You're not dreaming yet, not fully, but you're no longer awake in the way you were moments before. You're floating in the in-between, where thought and sensation blend. What makes this early stage so special is that it offers a glimpse into how consciousness behaves when it's not busy navigating the outside world. Without the constant presence of sight, sound, decision-making, and identity, the mind begins to explore itself. It wanders through small memories, half-finished sentences, impressions left by the day. If consciousness during wakefulness is like standing by a bright, bustling river, then consciousness during this descent is like drifting into a quiet forest, where sounds are softer and everything feels slowed and smoothed. And in this transition, the boundary between you and your experience becomes a little more fluid. Thoughts arise without effort. Images flicker without instruction. Insights sometimes appear out of nowhere. Many artists and scientists throughout history have spoken of this state as the source of sudden ideas. The gentle murmurings of inspiration that come just before sleep claims the mind fully. It is a space where creativity stretches out, no longer held tightly by rules or logic. As your awareness continues to drift, something important happens. The sense of self grows lighter. Not gone, not lost, but softened, like a reflection on rippling water. This softening is what allows you to finally cross the threshold into sleep. It's not that consciousness disappears, it merely changes shape, slipping into a quieter form that no longer needs the edges and definitions it held during the day. In a moment, the dream world will begin to build itself, first as a whisper, then as a vivid landscape. But for now, you're in the gentle descent where the mind unbuttons itself from the world and prepares to wander deeper. When sleep finally gathers you into its arms, it does not carry you into a single, uninterrupted darkness. Instead, it guides you through a beautifully layered rhythm, a kind of quiet choreography unfolding behind closed eyes. Many imagine sleep as a long, simple descent into rest, but the truth is softer, richer, and far more intricate. Your mind moves through the night the way tides travel across a moonlit shore, forward, retreating, returning again, each cycle shaping a different texture of awareness. The first of these cycles begins not long after consciousness releases its grip. Think of it as stepping into a dimly lit room where the rest of the night waits patiently. This early stage is where your senses continue fading, like lights gently lowered one switch at a time. External sounds feel softened, as if padded by distance. Your body grows still, and thoughts become quieter, more fluid. This is not yet the deep ocean of sleep, but the shallow waters that allow the mind to slow down enough to begin drifting inward. As you pass deeper, something interesting happens. The world outside no longer competes for your attention. This is the beginning of a state often called light sleep, though it carries a richness all its own. Here, the body starts adjusting itself for the long night ahead. Your heartbeat eases into a slower rhythm, your temperature drops slightly, and your muscles begin to rest more fully. If wakefulness is like holding your breath without noticing, this stage is the long, slow exhale your body has been waiting for. Somewhere inside your brain, small bursts of activity flicker, almost like a match being struck in a dark room. Scientists sometimes describe these as protective sparks, tiny mechanisms your mind uses to keep the outside world from pulling you back awake too easily. But rather than thinking of them as technical events, imagine them instead as the mind closing its shutters, one by one sheltering your interior world from sudden drafts of noise or light. Then, without any announcement, the landscape shifts again. You sink into deeper waters, where the mind moves slowly, steadily, like a great whale gliding beneath the surface. This deeper phase is not filled with scenes or stories. Instead, it is a time of restoration, a quiet workshop where the body repairs itself. Cells are mended, tissues strengthened, the immune system reinforced. If the earlier stages are about letting go, this one is about rebuilding. Imagine gentle hands tidying the shelves of your inner library, ensuring everything is where it belongs. Yet, even this is not the final destination. After the body has done its restoration work, something almost magical occurs. The calm, slow waves of deep rest give way to an unexpected burst of internal light and colour. Your eyes, though closed, begin to twitch beneath the lids. The brain, once quiet, brightens again. In this moment you enter what many have called the dream stage, where stories unfold with the vividness of cinema and the unpredictability of imagination unbound. This particular stage of sleep behaves differently from all the others. Even though your body remains still, held gently in a temporary paralysis that protects you from acting out your dreams, the mind is astonishingly active. Pictures sharpen, voices return, landscapes rise up almost instantly, as if the mind were turning pages in a book written just for you. It is in this stage that the strangeness and beauty of dreams come alive, shaped from memories, emotions, and fragments of your inner world. But what makes this cycle truly fascinating is that it does not happen just once. Throughout the night, your mind moves through these stages again and again, like a repeating melody with slight variations each time. The first cycles tend to carry you deeper into the restorative phases, where the body performs its quiet maintenance. Later cycles allow more time in the dream-rich stage, as if the mind, satisfied with its repair work, is finally free to wander. Toward dawn, dream periods grow longer, more expansive, sometimes more emotionally charged. This is why dreams just before waking often feel the most vivid, as if the mind is painting with brighter colours and broader strokes. Different creatures experience these cycles differently. Birds, for example, have learned to rest with half their brain at a time, keeping one side awake to watch for predators. Dolphins do something similar, letting one hemisphere sleep while the other serves as a guardian. These adaptations reveal that sleep is not a mere shutting down, but a flexible and deeply intelligent process, shaped by the needs of each species. Seeing this helps us understand our own cycles more gently, not as technical stages, but as the body's natural way of caring for itself, while staying connected to the rhythms of life on Earth. In humans, these cycles serve as a nightly negotiation between body and mind. One focuses on repair, the other on memory, creativity, and dreams. One slows down the machinery of life, while the other lights up imagination. Together, they allow us to return to the world in the morning feeling more whole than we were the night before. And so, the architecture of sleep is less a strict blueprint and more a soft recurring dance, a rise and fall, a drifting and returning, a quiet tide that pulls you gently into deep waters, then carries you back toward the shores of waking. Every night, your consciousness follows this rhythm, whether you notice it or not, an elegant cycle that has shaped human life since the very beginning. As the night deepens, your consciousness drifts into a quieter, more deliberate world. Here, beneath the surface of dreams, a remarkable process unfolds, one that shapes your memories, moods, and even how you understand the story of your own life. It is the nightly work of sorting, cleaning, and weaving together the countless impressions gathered during the day. If the mind were a vast library, then this is the moment when a gentle librarian walks through the aisles, returning misplaced books to their shelves, dusting off forgotten corners, and setting aside a few special volumes that need extra care. This librarian works in silence. You never feel the movement, never sense the careful hands turning through pages of thought. Yet the effects of this inner tending appear each morning in subtle ways. The slight lift in your mood, the way a stressful moment feels somehow less sharp, the sudden clarity around a problem that felt tangled the night before. Without this quiet ordering, the mind would slowly fill with clutter, like a room where nothing is ever put away. But sleep offers a nightly reset, a chance for the mind to breathe, sweep, and gently reorganize its own inner world. During this time, memories are not replayed like videos or stories, but more like fragments of colour and sound. A sentence spoken earlier in the day, the shape of a passing stranger, the feeling of warm light against your skin. Memories break apart into smaller pieces, each one carrying a hint of emotional weight or meaning. Rather than storing every moment perfectly, the mind chooses what matters, what to keep, what to soften, what to let go. These fragments travel through the night like small puzzle pieces drifting toward the places where they belong. Sometimes the mind replays events at remarkable speed, condensing long experiences into bursts so brief you never notice them. It can reverse, compress, or combine them in ways no waking logic would attempt. Imagine shuffling through a deck of images. Here is a laugh you shared at lunchtime. Here is a sentence you read quickly. Here is the feeling of stepping outside into cold air. Nothing appears in its original order because the mind is not trying to recreate your day. It is extracting meaning, emotion, and patterns, deciding how each moment fits into the larger tapestry of who you are becoming. This quiet sorting has a softness to it, even when the memories themselves might not be easy. If something unpleasant happened during the day, sleep offers a way for the emotional edge to slowly dull. It is not erasure, but gentle reshaping, like smoothing a wrinkle in fabric. By replaying memories with reduced emotional intensity, the mind allows you to revisit them without the weight they carried just hours before. This is why a difficult conversation can feel different in the morning, and why wounds that seemed fresh the night before begin to feel more manageable by sunrise. But memory is only one part of this nightly work. Deep within the mind, the emotional centers that guide your reactions and instincts are recalibrated, the way a clockmaker might adjust a timepiece to keep it running smoothly. Connections that were too tight loosen, paths that were unclear gain shape. The internal world becomes balanced again, prepared for another day of navigating challenges, joys, and surprises. There is also creativity at work here, though it moves quietly. When the logical parts of the brain relax, imagination stretches out into open space. Ideas that felt stuck during the day begin to move again, slipping into new shapes. This is why solutions appear unexpectedly after a night of rest. Your mind has been testing possibilities without the constraints of linear thinking. Even if you do not recall your dreams, their influence lingers. A choice becomes easier. A perspective shifts. Something that felt heavy feels lighter. What makes this inner process so beautiful is that it unfolds without effort. You do not need to direct it or understand it. You simply sleep, and the mind does the rest. The librarian does not ask for recognition. It quietly ensures that your inner world remains coherent, meaningful, and ready to welcome new experiences. As this sorting continues, the brain strengthens the pathways that matter most. Memories tied to learning, relationships, or emotions gain a stronger place in the library, while unneeded fragments fade softly into the background. It is a kind of wisdom, knowing what to hold and what to allow to drift away. And though the mind's choices are invisible to you, they shape how you think, feel, and remember. Some memories resurface in dreams during this stage, though they may appear scattered, symbolic, or transformed. A hallway from your childhood, a friend you have not seen in years, a task you forgot to finish. These appearances are not literal recollections, but echoes, memories passing through the sorting room on their way to their final place. Their presence is a reminder that dreams, even the most confusing ones, often carry the fingerprints of your waking life. With each passing moment, the librarian completes another quiet task, another small restoration. Shelves settle into order. The mind hums softly in the background. By the time you awaken, much of this nocturnal work will be complete, though you will remember none of it. But you will feel it in the clarity of thought, the lightness of mood, the sense that you can face whatever the new day brings. As the night drifts onward, something remarkable begins to happen beneath the gentle sorting of memory. The quiet librarian who organized the fragments of your day steps aside, and another presence takes over. A kind of inner architect who starts assembling those fragments into living scenes. This is the moment when your mind shifts from simple housekeeping into simulation, building entire worlds from the raw material of experience. It is not dreaming yet, not fully. It is the stage where the mind begins testing possibilities, exploring patterns, and rehearsing life in ways the waking world never allows. Imagine a workshop flickering to life in the dark, its walls lined with tools and half-finished sketches. The brain, no longer occupied with the demands of daylight, has the freedom to wander through this space. It drifts from one memory to another, picking up a fragment here, a feeling there. A conversation you barely noticed in the afternoon. The sound of footsteps on a hallway floor. The way the sky looked just before sunset. None of these pieces make sense on their own, but the mind is not searching for literal truth. It is searching for meaning, for structure, for understanding. Scientists sometimes describe this phase as the brain replaying the day, but that phrase is far too small for what truly happens. The mind does not replay anything the way a screen might replay a film. Instead, it compresses hours of experience into moments, running through them at speeds impossible to notice. In these internal rehearsals, the mind rearranges events out of order, connecting things that were never linked in waking life. It may test how a situation could have unfolded differently, or explore what emotions linger beneath the surface. It might run backward through a memory, or skip through details, or blend moments from separate days. All of this unfolds beneath conscious awareness, like a hidden language the mind speaks only during sleep. This nightly simulation serves a quiet purpose. Life is full of uncertainty, and the world is far too complex to navigate using only direct experience. So the mind uses sleep to explore possibilities, practicing responses without consequences, like rehearsing on a stage where no audience is watching. If you encountered something stressful during the day, the mind may replay the moment in different forms, helping you understand it more deeply. If you learn something new, this is where it begins to take shape inside your memory. If you are frightened, the mind may gently revisit the feeling, reducing its power. It is a rehearsal room, a place where the self tries on different scripts for tomorrow. But this internal workshop is also the birthplace of creativity. Without the strict rules of logic or the pressure to stay anchored in reality, imagination becomes fluid, curious, adventurous. Ideas that felt trapped during the day suddenly find space to move. A melody forms from fragments of memory. A solution appears to a problem you couldn't decipher. the mind begins to colour outside the lines, mixing pieces of your life into shapes you never considered. Large leaps of insight often come not from careful analysis, but from these loose, drifting movements of thought. Moments when the mind is allowed to explore without boundaries. During this stage, the emotional heart of the brain glows softly. Feelings that were held tightly during wakefulness begin to loosen. They're examined without judgment, replayed without the full weight they carried before. Imagine a storm cloud from earlier in the day being held gently in the palm of the mind, turned slowly until its shape is understood. This is why painful memories often feel less harsh after sleep, why worries soften, why small joys become clearer. As the brain continues crafting these internal rehearsals, something else begins to shift. The boundaries between memory, imagination, and emotion grow more fluid. The workshop becomes less structured, as if walls dissolve and the mind starts wandering more freely. A memory of walking into a cafe may merge with an image of a childhood home. A concern about the future may drift into a soothing landscape. Thoughts that once felt separate now blend like pigments on a painter's palette. And then, quietly, a transformation occurs. The simulations begin to take on life of their own. The mind no longer rearranges fragments intentionally. It begins to build scenes, movements, conversations, setting suns, opening doors, characters who behave with surprising independence. This is the threshold where the workshop becomes a world. The architect steps back, the lights change, and the mind begins to slip into the vivid theatre of dreams. In these moments, you may not yet be dreaming in the narrative sense, but you are close. The mind is preparing. Moods gather like weather systems. Imagery deepens. Scenes grow more textured. This slow shift is why dreams can feel as though they rise from fog. Pieces of familiar reality rearranging themselves into patterns never seen before. These simulations reveal something profound about consciousness. Even when it appears to rest, it is actively shaping your understanding of life, testing your emotional balance and exploring pathways that waking awareness rarely considers. Sleep is not merely a pause, it is a second world where the mind continues its work in ways more fluid, intuitive, and mysterious. Soon the quiet simulations will thicken into full stories, narrative will weave itself from memory, emotion will take the shape of landscapes, and you will be carried into realms where you're both the author and the traveller, moving through scenes that belong to you but somehow exceed your control. There comes a moment deep in the night when the soft rehearsals of the mind give way to something far more vivid. The quiet workshop that rearranged fragments of memory begins to glow with colour, sound, and emotion, and suddenly you are no longer drifting through scattered impressions. You're standing inside a world that seems complete. Dreams, with all their impossible landscapes and shifting storylines, often feel more real than the places you move through during the day. They hold a kind of gravity, a sense of presence that can be startling in its intensity. And yet, when the morning arrives, they dissolve like mist, touched by sunlight. What makes this strange blend of reality and unreality so compelling? Part of the answer lies in the way the dreaming mind paints its world. While you sleep, the centres of the brain responsible for emotion glow like lanterns in the dark. Feelings that might have been subtle during the day deepen and take on texture. A small worry can swell into a vast echoing landscape. A moment of joy can bloom into radiant scenes that feel almost sacred. The emotional palette becomes richer, bolder, and more expansive than waking life often allows. Without the careful reasoning of daytime thought, these emotions spread freely, creating entire dream worlds from their colours. At the same time, the parts of the brain that handle careful judgment and logic become quieter, as if they've curled up to sleep in the corner of a room. This soft dimming of structure is what makes dreams feel both natural and strange. You might walk through a familiar street only for it to turn into the hallway of your childhood home. You might speak with someone who appears as two people at once. In waking life, your logical mind would step in immediately, pointing out the impossibility. But in dreams, that voice is hushed. The mind accepts the surreal with extraordinary ease, allowing the dream world to unfold without resistance. Another element that makes dreams feel so convincingly real is the vividness of sensory imagery. The visual centers of the brain, freed from the constraints of processing the outside world, begin generating scenes with astonishing clarity. Colors may appear richer, textures may feel more intricate, sound may carry a depth that waking ears rarely notice. Even abstract or symbolic dreams, which seem to shift like stained glass turning in the light, are infused with a sense of presence. You don't simply imagine these scenes, you inhabit them. Time behaves differently here as well. Minutes can stretch into hours, or an entire dream story can unfold in what feels like a blink. This is because the brain is not measuring time with the same internal clock used during waking life. Instead, it allows narrative and emotion to determine the rhythm. A moment of fear may feel elongated, while a joyous dream may pass quickly. This elasticity is part of what gives dreams their fluid, cinematic quality, as if the mind were editing its own film in real time. But the realism of dreams is not only sensory, it is also deeply psychological. Dreams draw from the language of your memories, your desires, and your fears. They build worlds from the symbols you've carried throughout your life. A school hallway might represent unfinished learning. A vast landscape might reflect freedom or longing. Meeting a childhood friend might connect to forgotten emotions or unresolved thoughts. Dreams often speak in metaphors that feel instinctively meaningful, even when their literal details seem confused or impossible. The dream world feels real, not because it follows the rules of the waking world, but because it follows the rules of you. This blending of internal truth and imagined reality is why certain dreams linger long after waking. Even if the details are fragmented, the feeling remains. The echo of the story, the weight of the emotion, the sense of having visited a place that somehow matters. You may not recall the exact shape of the dream, but you remember how it made you feel. And often, that feeling awakens something subtle inside you. A deeper understanding of a relationship, a renewed sense of inspiration, or a quiet release of something you had held tightly without noticing. Dreams also borrow from the imagination in ways that exceed ordinary creativity. Without the constraints of physical rules, the mind experiments with form and perspective. You may fly, dissolve into water, move through walls, or watch events unfold from a viewpoint not anchored to a body. These experiences feel foreign yet strangely natural, inviting you into a universe where the boundaries of identity and space are flexible. It is not uncommon to feel more free in these moments than in waking life, as if the mind were momentarily remembering how limitless it can be. In many cultures throughout history, dreams have been understood as journeys rather than illusions, temporary visits to other layers of reality. While modern science often leans toward interpreting dreams as products of internal processing, there is something undeniably powerful about the way dreams construct their own logic, atmosphere, and momentum. They behave like self-contained worlds, complete with their own rules, characters, and emotional landscapes. When you're inside a dream, you rarely question its authenticity. You do not ask whether the sun should rise in the west, or whether the person speaking to you can truly shift shapes. The dream's coherence is not based on physics but on emotional truth. You accept it because the dream does not ask to be analysed, it simply unfolds and you follow. This capacity of the mind to create experiences that feel realer than real is a testament to the depth of consciousness. It reveals that reality, as we experience it, is not only a matter of external facts, but also the stories and meanings we weave into them. Even when the body sleeps, the mind continues exploring, creating and feeling with an intensity that reminds us of how vast our inner world truly is. There is a rare and delicate moment that sometimes arrives in the middle of a dream, a moment so gentle that you might miss its significance until it has already happened. It begins as a faint recognition, a quiet whisper inside your mind that says, "Something here feels different." Perhaps a detail in the dream doesn't quite belong. A familiar room suddenly painted in a colour you've never seen before, or a clock that refuses to hold steady numbers, or the soft realisation that gravity no longer treats you quite the same way it does when you're awake. And then, almost like a lantern being lit within a darkened hallway, the awareness sharpens. You understand without panic or surprise, I am dreaming. This is lucid dreaming, a state where the dream continues but a part of you stirs awake within it. The surreal landscape does not dissolve, the characters do not vanish. Instead, the self becomes present inside the story, aware and able to move with intention. It is one of the most extraordinary experiences the mind can offer, like stepping onto a stage and suddenly remembering that you are both the actor and the playwright of the scene unfolding around you. What makes lucid dreaming so remarkable is not that it breaks the rules of the dream world, but that it reveals how flexible those rules truly are. In waking life, consciousness clings to linear logic, to physical laws, to routines and consequences. But inside a lucid dream, awareness loosens its boundaries. The walls of the dream shift, not because something outside is changing them, but because you are. If you decide to fly, the sky opens. If you decide to walk through a door, the door may lead to a place born entirely from memory or emotion. There is a softness to this world, a malleability that responds to intention as naturally as clay responding to the warmth of human hands. Scientists have studied lucid dreaming for decades, and they've learned that certain parts of the brain associated with self-awareness briefly brighten during these moments. But rather than imagining a map or a diagram, it's easier to think of it as a candle being relit inside a darkened room. Most of the dreaming mind remains immersed in its creative landscape, painting scenes and shaping sensations. Yet a small flame of awareness flickers back to life, allowing you to observe the dream instead of simply drifting through it. This flicker of awareness often brings with it a feeling of clarity that dreams rarely possess. Colours might appear brighter, movements may feel smoother, even emotions shift. Fear can dissolve instantly when you remember that nothing in the dream can harm you. Many people describe this moment as freeing, even euphoric. It is as if the mind is reminding you of its immense creativity and its ability to shape experience from pure imagination. Lucid dreams often begin spontaneously, arising in the midst of ordinary dreams, but they can also be invited, gently encouraged through intention. Before falling asleep, some people repeat a soft phrase to themselves, something like, "When I dream, I will know I am dreaming." This is not a spell or a formula, but more like leaving a candle burning in the hallway so that it's easier to find your way back to awareness later in the night. The mind, when given a clear intention, sometimes carries it into the dream unnoticed until the right moment arrives. There are also natural cues that can nudge awareness awake within a dream. Impossible events, like floating gently above the ground or finding yourself in a childhood home long since changed, or looking into a mirror and seeing a face that shifts like water, may stir something inside you. The dream self pauses, tilts its head, and recognizes the impossibility, not with alarm, but with curiosity. This curiosity is the doorway to lucidity. Once inside a lucid dream, the experience can go in many directions. Some people choose to explore. They wander through dream landscapes that feel as vast as entire cities. Others fly, drawn upward into skies painted with colours that waking life could never quite imitate. Some choose to speak with dream characters, asking questions or simply observing how they respond. And some people simply choose to be still, to feel the quiet of the moment, to let the dream world hold them without the urgency of action. There's also a reflective quality to lucid dreaming. Because you are aware, you can observe your own reactions without being carried away by them. A frightening shape may appear, but rather than running, you can look at it with calm curiosity. Often, the shape softens or shifts, revealing itself to be nothing more than the dream's way of expressing an inner tension. In this way, lucid dreaming becomes not only a playground for imagination, but also a gentle mirror, offering glimpses into hidden corners of the emotional world. But even with awareness present, the dream remains delicate. Too strong a reaction, a burst of excitement, a sudden fear, can pull you out of it. Lucidity requires softness, a willingness to let the dream unfold without gripping it too tightly. It is like holding a butterfly on your palm, steady enough not to drop it, gentle enough not to frighten it away. Eventually, the dream reclaims itself. The candle of awareness slowly dims, melting back into the deeper currents of sleep. You may wake with a sense of wonder, or with a memory of incredible vividness, or sometimes with only the faintest impression that something extraordinary occurred. But even when the details vanish, the feeling lingers, a reminder that consciousness is not confined to waking life, but capable of awakening within its own creations. Lucid dreaming reveals something quietly profound, that awareness is adaptable, resilient, and far more expansive than it might seem. Even when the body is still and the outer world has faded, consciousness continues exploring, discovering and expressing itself in ways the waking mind rarely notices. And in those rare nights when the veil lifts and you awaken inside your own dream, you catch a glimpse of just how vast the inner universe truly is. As the night stretches on and the dreaming mind continues weaving its quiet stories, there are moments when something unusual, almost mysterious, begins to take shape beneath the surface. Most dreams feel deeply personal, sculpted from the language of your memories and emotions. Yet, scattered across different cultures and different corners of the world, there are stories, soft, persistent stories, of dreams that seem to overlap, to echo one another, or even to be shared. Two people dreaming the same scene, a parent and child waking with identical memories of a nighttime journey. Friends separated by distance describing the same strange place, the same sky, the same impossible room. These moments raise a gentle question. Could dreams sometimes reach beyond the boundaries of one mind? To explore this idea, it helps to remember that dreams speak a language made of symbols, associations, and emotional patterns rather than literal events. When two people experience similar stresses, hopes, or fears, their dreaming minds may wander through similar imagery. A hallway representing uncertainty, a bridge symbolizing change, a storm reflecting inner tension. These shared emotional landscapes can give rise to dreams that appear connected, even when the dreamers never spoke about them. But there are some stories, quietly passed down among families, whispered between close friends, that feel harder to explain through coincidence alone. Imagine two people, far apart, each drifting into sleep with thoughts of one another lingering softly in their hearts. Perhaps they had spoken earlier in the day. Perhaps they had not spoken at all. Yet during sleep, in the subtle space where consciousness loosens its boundaries, their inner worlds might move closer for a moment, like two lanterns flickering on the same breeze. The dream becomes a meeting place, a shared room shaped from familiar emotions. Upon waking, they discover they both visited the same imaginary beach, or walked through the same luminous corridor. Shared symbolism can explain some of this, but not all of it. There is something tender and intriguing about the possibility that minds, when freed from the noise of waking life, might resonate with one another. In many cultural traditions, dreams have long been understood as communal spaces. Some indigenous communities describe dream realms as gathering grounds where members of a tribe not only meet ancestors, but also one another. Ancient texts from different continents echo the belief that dreams connect individuals through a hidden thread, woven from shared meaning. And Jung, the psychologist who studied the deeper layers of human imagination, proposed the idea of a collective unconscious, a vast reservoir of imagery, stories, and symbols shared across humanity. Even if each dream feels personal, it draws from a well that belongs to all of us. This shared reservoir helps explain why certain dream themes appear universally: falling, being chased, travelling across endless landscapes, returning to a childhood place long forgotten. These recurring motifs are not accidents. They reflect the universal architecture of the mind. But shared dreams, the kind where two people recall the same details, suggest something even more delicate. They raise the idea that dreams might not be entirely sealed within each separate brain. Perhaps when consciousness drifts into its softer, more fluid form at night, it becomes more permeable, more attuned to subtle signals or emotional currents it would normally overlook. Some researchers describe this idea using the metaphor of radio waves. Each person, when asleep, sends out a kind of emotional frequency, a blend of longing, curiosity, memory, and desire. If two people are closely connected, whether through love, shared history, or deep empathy, their frequencies might tune into one another briefly, the way two radios catch the same signal when placed side by side. The dream becomes a shared broadcast, shaped not only by individual minds but by the bond between them. It is also possible that shared dreams arise from mirrored emotional states. When two people move through similar life transitions, new beginnings, grief, uncertainty, anticipation, their dreams may construct parallel scenes because their inner worlds are undergoing the same realignment. These dreams feel shared not because of literal overlap, but because of emotional harmony. The dream world, after all, does not rely on logical connections. It moves along the subtle trails left behind by feeling. But there are stories that go further, describing not only similar dreams, but dreams where one person speaks to another, where conversations are remembered almost word for word by both dreamers. Some describe exploring unfamiliar places together, or offering comfort, or receiving guidance. These experiences blur the line between metaphor and something deeper. And while science does not claim to explain them, it does not dismiss them either. The dreaming mind is capable of remarkable feats, and shared dreaming, if it occurs, is simply another expression of consciousness reaching beyond the limits of waking perception. If dreams sometimes overlap, even briefly, what might this say about the nature of awareness? Perhaps consciousness, when freed from the sharp boundaries of the physical senses, becomes more spacious, more interconnected. It might drift into a subtle field, an unseen ocean where thoughts, memories and emotions ripple outward like gentle waves. In such a field, the distance between minds could soften. Two dreamers floating in the same quiet sea might naturally brush against one another's currents. Even if shared dreams do not happen as often as stories suggest, the idea alone touches on something profoundly human, the desire for connection so deep that it continues even in sleep. And when two people awaken with the same strange memory, or when someone senses that another person appeared in their dream at just the right moment, it reminds us that the boundaries between us may not be as rigid as they seem. Dream echoes, those moments where a dream feels like a message, a reunion, or a shared breath, are gentle hints that consciousness might extend farther than the waking mind assumes. Whether through shared, emotional landscapes, resonant memories, or something more mysterious, dreams allow us glimpses of a world where inner lives occasionally overlap. And in that overlap there is wonder, comfort, and a quiet suggestion that even in sleep, none of us are entirely alone. There are few moments in the night more unforgettable than waking to find that your mind has surfaced but your body has not yet followed. It begins quietly, your eyes open, or perhaps you believe they do. You sense the shape of your room, the faint glow of light filtering through the curtains, the stillness of your own breath. But when you try to move, nothing responds. Not a finger, not a whisper, not even the small muscles of the face. It is as if your body has fallen away, leaving only a floating awareness suspended in a space where the familiar rules have not yet returned. This is sleep paralysis, a phenomenon both deeply ordinary and deeply unsettling. It is ordinary because it happens to countless people across the world, often without harm. It is unsettling because in these moments, consciousness seems caught between two realities, awake enough to notice the world, but still anchored to the dreaming state that holds the body in place. You are present, but motionless, a witness trapped inside a silent shell. To understand this state, imagine the mind and body as dance partners who must coordinate perfectly each night. During dreams, especially the vivid, fast-moving dreams of the later sleep cycles, the body is gently held in a protective stillness. This prevents you from acting out the stories unfolding in your mind, running, fighting, leaping, speaking. It is a safeguard, a quiet paralysis that keeps the body safe while the mind roams freely through strange landscapes. When everything works smoothly, the paralysis fades the moment you awaken, like curtains lifting after a performance. But occasionally the timing slips. The mind wakes early, floating upward into awareness while the body remains in its dream-bound stillness. It is like stepping onto a stage before the scenery has been fully set. The world appears real, yet something essential is missing. You feel alert, but the body that normally responds so easily remains quiet, heavy, unreachable. In these moments, the mind often fills in the gaps with imagery shaped from the remnants of dreams and emotions. This is why people across cultures, across centuries, describe seeing similar shapes during sleep paralysis. Shadowy figures at the edges of the room, a presence sitting on the chest, faint footsteps approaching from a corner that didn't exist a moment before. These forms are not literal visitors, but reflections created by an emotional mind that is still partly dreaming. The centers of the brain responsible for fear may still be active from the dream state, projecting shapes into the darkness the way twilight creates silhouettes from nothing more than furniture and imagination. Yet, what makes these hallucinations feel so real is not their detail, but the emotional atmosphere surrounding them. In sleep paralysis, the part of the mind that normally evaluates threats, the steady, logical voice that whispers, "everything is fine," is not fully active. Without that grounding voice, even the faintest suggestion of a shape can feel overwhelming. A coat draped over a chair becomes an intruder. A shadow becomes a living presence, a feeling of pressure on the chest, caused simply by shallow breathing, becomes something pressing down with intent. Despite the intensity of these sensations, sleep paralysis is not dangerous. The body is not harmed. The breath continues. The heart keeps its steady rhythm. But the experience can feel profound, even mystical, because it reveals how the mind constructs reality when given only fragments to work with. It shows how emotion, memory, and perception blend together into a single tapestry, even when the physical world remains unchanged. In many traditions, sleep paralysis has been interpreted as a spiritual encounter. Some cultures speak of night spirits who visit when the boundary between worlds thins. Others describe it as a moment when the soul steps slightly outside the body, hovering before returning with morning light. These interpretations arise not from superstition, but from the genuine strangeness of the experience. It feels like standing at the threshold of something unseen, something larger than yourself. And in a way, that is exactly what it is, the threshold between dreaming and waking, between inner and outer worlds. What is most fascinating about sleep paralysis is that it reveals how consciousness behaves when it is untethered from physical movement. When you cannot turn your head or lift your hand, your awareness sharpens in unexpected ways. Sounds seem louder, the sense of presence becomes stronger. Time stretches, becoming heavy and slow. A few seconds can feel like minutes. This is the mind, operating without the grounding influence of the body. It becomes hypersensitive, alert, and imaginative all at once. Eventually, the body awakens. The paralysis fades like a shadow dissolving in early morning light. Your fingers twitch, your breath deepens, and the room you thought you saw becomes clear again. What felt like an eternity was often only a brief moment, but the memory lingers, the sense of hovering between worlds, the strange clarity, the vivid emotions. For many people, the first instinct is to avoid thinking about these moments, to push them into a corner of the mind where unsettling memories are kept. But sleep paralysis can also be understood as a gentle reminder of how layered consciousness truly is. You're not simply awake or asleep. Your mind moves through many shades of awareness, each with its own relationship to reality. Sleep paralysis is simply one of these shades, a fleeting pause where consciousness surfaces before the body's ready. Understanding this can soften the experience. If it happens again, a calm inner voice may whisper, "This is temporary, my body will return soon." And with that reassurance, the threshold becomes less frightening and more like a doorway gently opening. A place where two worlds meet for just a moment, before awareness steps fully back into the familiar waking world. There are moments in the night when the delicate boundary between dream and waking life thins, and the worlds begin to overlap. Most nights, the mind dreams within its own sealed chamber while the body rests safely behind a curtain of stillness. But sometimes that curtain lifts just enough for the dream to step outward, or for the body to respond to a world that exists only in the imagination. These moments, known broadly as parasomnias, reveal how powerfully the dreaming mind can influence the physical self, and how fluid the boundary between inner and outer worlds can become. To understand these episodes, imagine again the nightly dance between brain and body. When everything aligns perfectly, this dance is graceful. The mind drifts into dreams, the body remains calm, and both return gently to waking life when morning arrives. But sometimes the timing slips, just slightly. A dream grows vivid before the body is fully relaxed, or the body stirs before the dream is ended. These asynchronies create peculiar, unforgettable experiences, moments when the dream leaks into the physical world. One of the most well-known examples is sleepwalking. In this state, the dreamer is deeply asleep, yet the body begins to move as if responding to some silent invitation. The eyes may be open, the footsteps steady, but the mind remains within its own private world. A sleepwalker might wander through hallways, straighten objects on a table, or even step outside briefly, all without the faintest memory. It is not the dream itself being acted out, but a kind of partial awakening in which the body follows familiar routines without the guidance of conscious awareness. The motions are often slow, automatic, almost ghost-like, an echo of daytime habit replaying itself without intent. Sleep-talking, another common parasomnia, arises from a similar mismatch between dreaming and bodily expression. Words spill out in fragments, sometimes clear, sometimes mumbled. They may carry emotional weight even when they make no sense at all. In these moments, the dreamer's mind is stitching together stories or processing memories, and the voice simply spills out like overflow from the deeper currents. It is not speech in the usual sense, but the distant echo of an inner conversation. More intense, though less common, is a condition in which the paralysis that normally protects the body during dreaming fails to fully activate. In these cases, the dreamer may act out parts of a dream, reaching, kicking, turning, or speaking with striking emotion. The dream might involve running, fighting, or trying to protect someone. Meanwhile, the body responds with movements that mirror the story unfolding in the dream world. This is not dangerous in itself, but it reveals how deeply dreams can grip the mind. The dreamer is not choosing these actions. They arise directly from the emotional core of the dream, spilling outward like waves breaking over a shoreline. Children frequently experience variations of this during night terrors. Unlike typical nightmares, which occur in the vivid dream stages, night terrors emerge from deep sleep when the mind is not fully conscious. A child may sit upright suddenly, crying or calling out, not awake but not fully asleep either. Their eyes may be open, yet they do not see the room around them. They are responding to something only they can feel, a surge of emotion without a clear story attached. The episode fades quickly, leaving the child unaware the next morning. For caregivers, these moments are startling, but for the sleeper, they are simply the mind releasing tension that cannot be expressed during waking hours. These strange nighttime behaviours might seem alarming, but they reveal something profound about the workings of the dreaming mind. They remind us that sleep is not a simple on or off state. It is a spectrum of awareness, layered and fluid, where the mind and body can drift in and out of sync. Parasomnias occur in the spaces between these layers, in the transitional zones where consciousness shifts form. If we were to look deeper, not through charts or diagrams, but through imagination, we might picture the dreaming mind as an ocean moving beneath the surface of a still body. Most of the time, the waves roll quietly below, unseen, but occasionally a swell rises high enough to ripple the surface, a hand twitches, a voice murmurs, a foot takes a hesitant step on the floor. These ripples are not mistakes. They are natural expressions of a mind that is far more active, emotional, and dynamic than it appears from the outside. For some people, these episodes happen during times of stress or emotional transition. The mind, working through tangled feelings, may send powerful signals that escape into the physical world. For others, parasomnias occur during growth or neurological development, especially in childhood, when the pathways between dreaming and waking life are still being shaped. And in rare cases, certain medications, fevers, or irregular sleep schedules may nudge the balance just enough to allow these dream echoes to emerge. What is most fascinating is how universal these experiences are. Across cultures and history, people have noted the strange things sleepers do, speaking in voices not their own, walking as though guided by unseen paths, reenacting fragments of dreams they can't recall upon waking. These events carry a hint of the mystical, as if the sleeper were momentarily wandering between worlds, but they are also deeply human, woven into the fabric of how consciousness transitions from one state to another. Parasomnias remind us that the line between dream and waking is not a wall but a soft veil. Most nights the veil remains intact, and the dreamer travels their inner landscapes unseen. But occasionally the veil stirs, fluttering gently. A word slips through, a gesture, a step, a sigh. These moments, though startling, are simply the mind revealing how effortlessly it can shape both imagination and movement. Eventually, the cycles of sleep progress, the mind settles into quieter rhythms, and the veil strengthens again. The dream world retreats, the body rests, and the delicate dance between mind and body realigns itself. By morning, the sleeper awakens with no memory of the night's small wanderings, stepping back into the familiar world with a mind that has once again woven itself whole. There is a particular moment in the night, rare, delicate, and whispered about across cultures, when a dreamer feels as though they have gently risen from their own body. Not violently, not with fear, but with a sensation as soft as lifting through warm water. You may have felt something like it before. The lightness, the quiet turning, the sense of drifting upward while the physical body remains still beneath you. It can happen during the earlier seconds of falling asleep, or in the brief shimmering moments before waking. And though it feels extraordinary, the experience arises from a very natural place within the sleeping mind. To understand how this floating sensation emerges, imagine again the moment between dreaming and waking, the fragile threshold where awareness loosens its attachment to physical form. During the vivid dream stages, the ones where scenes unfold with cinematic clarity, the body is held in a protective stillness. Muscles rest deeply. The body map, the internal sense of where your limbs and edges exist, grows soft and diffuse. Normally, this boundary returns to full clarity the moment you awaken, but sometimes the order reverses. The mind becomes awake enough to observe, while the sensations of the body lag behind. This mismatch creates a feeling as though you are hovering without weight, shape, or physical anchor. It is not that the mind truly leaves the body, but that the sense of location, of being inside, becomes momentarily untethered. The familiar gravity of identity relaxes. The mental map that tells you where your hands and feet are fades, like the outline of a shoreline beneath rising fog. In its place appears a drifting awareness, a perspective that feels lifted, expanded, or placed a few inches above where the body lies. This is why so many people describe floating upward, turning slowly, or rolling out of themselves like mist peeling away from water. During transitions in and out of the dream-rich cycles, the brain engages in a delicate recalibration. One part is adjusting awareness, another is adjusting the perception of the body, and yet another is navigating emotional currents left over from the dream. When these elements do not align at the same moment, the resulting gap can feel like a shift in perspective, as though consciousness has stepped outside its ordinary seat. It is a natural illusion, a gentle one, born from the softness of the boundary between inner experience and physical sensation. But while science offers this calming explanation, the subjective experience often feels much more mysterious. Many people who drift into this floating perspective describe seeing their rooms with surprising clarity. They recall the angle of the light, the shape of a chair, the gentle rise and fall of their own chest as they breathe. Sometimes these details are exactly as they are in waking life. Other times they differ subtly, objects slightly shifted, shadows softer or darker than they should be. revealing that the mind is constructing the scene from memory rather than from the senses. This observer viewpoint can feel profoundly real. It is unlike normal dreaming because the imagery is not surreal or symbolic. It feels anchored in the familiar world. You might find yourself drifting upward, turning slowly, or gliding toward a doorway before being pulled back into the body with a sudden inhale. The moment is brief, but deeply textured, as though the mind were exploring the edges of the self, testing the limits of where awareness can reach. Across cultures, this floating sensation has been interpreted in many ways. Some traditions see it as the spirit stepping lightly outside the body to wander the world of dreams. Others describe it as a momentary journey into a subtler realm, a layer of experience not visible during waking life. Yet, despite the mystical interpretations, the experience itself tends to be gentle, peaceful, and strangely comforting. It is not a violent tearing, but a soft drifting, a quiet shift in perspective rather than a departure. Neuroscience offers an explanation that is both simple and poetic. During sleep, the brain constructs a map of the body based on signals from muscles, joints, and senses, but in deep rest, those signals grow faint, fading like distant echoes. The mind then fills in the blanks with imagery. If awareness returns too quickly, the brain has not yet reassembled the full sense of physical presence. Without that grounding, consciousness feels spacious, unanchored. The floating is not a literal ascent, but the mind's way of interpreting the absence of bodily sensation. Think of it like a boat tied to a dock. When the rope is secure, the boat feels stable, but loosen the rope, just slightly, and the boat begins to drift with the tide, even though it never leaves the water. In the same way, the mind's connection to the body loosens during these transitional states, allowing awareness to drift gently without truly departing. Yet, even as neuroscience describes this effect in grounded terms, the emotional truth of the experience remains expansive. Many people who undergo these moments describe a sense of peace, of clarity, or even of wonder, not fear, but awe, as if something deep inside recognizes the feeling, not as a mistake, but as a natural extension of consciousness itself. And perhaps that is the quiet beauty of these floating perspectives. They remind us that consciousness is more fluid, more spacious than the waking mind assumes. It does not always sit neatly behind the eyes, or remain fixed inside the boundaries of the skin. Sometimes it becomes a gentle mist expanding into a wider space, observing without attachment, drifting without effort. Eventually the body map returns, sensations awaken, the limbs regain their presence, and you settle fully back into yourself. The floating fades like a fading note at the end of a song. You may awaken with the lingering sense of having hovered somewhere just beyond your body, or with the memory of turning weightlessly in a space that felt both familiar and dreamlike. Whether interpreted through science, symbolism, or personal meaning, out-of-body experiences offer a soft reminder that awareness is not confined to a single form. Even in sleep, consciousness explores the edges of its own vastness, giving you brief glimpses into the flexible and mysterious nature of the self. As the night unfolds and the mind continues its quiet wandering, there are dreams that feel unlike ordinary dreams. They carry a particular weight or a softness, a sense of depth that cannot easily be put into words. Some feel heavy and thick, like moving through dense fog. Others feel clear and familiar, shaped from memory and imagination. And a few feel so bright, so expansive, that they leave behind a glow long after waking. Across centuries and cultures, people have described these differences not as random variations, but as distinct layers of experience, stacked gently like the folds of morning mist over a field. These layers have been called many things, but one of the oldest names is the astral realms. When spoken of gently and symbolically, these realms are less about travelling to literal places and more about moving through different emotional atmospheres within the self. They reflect how deeply or lightly consciousness drifts during the night, shaped not just by dreams but by the quiet weather of the soul. The first layer, often called the lower astral, is not a dark or frightening place, though it can feel heavy. It resembles a landscape made of emotional fog. Here, the mind processes feelings that were too dense or tangled to fully handle during the day. Stress, unresolved conflict, lingering worry. These feelings become the mist through which dreams move. The scenery may shift rapidly. Colours may feel muted or strange. Movement may feel slow, like walking through thick air. If you've ever had a dream where your legs refuse to run, or the surroundings feel murky and unclear, you have touched this layer. It is not a punishment or a danger. It is simply the mind navigating its heavier weather. The middle astral, by contrast, feels far more familiar. It is the world where most dreams unfold, a place shaped by memory, imagination, and the natural creativity of the sleeping mind. Streets from your childhood reconnect in impossible ways. People you haven't seen in years appear as though they never left. Landscapes stretch into soft surrealism, blending truth with dream logic. This layer feels personal, reflective, an echo of your inner life. It is where the mind rehearses, explores, and expresses. If you've ever wandered through a dream that seemed to rewrite the world using the colours of your own life, you have drifted through this middle realm. Then there is the higher astral, described across traditions as luminous, spacious, and deeply serene. Dreams that unfold here often carry a sense of clarity, bright skies, open landscapes, gentle presences, or moments of profound calm. Some people report meeting guides, loved ones, or figures who seem woven from light. Others simply experience a feeling of being held, understood, or gently taught. Even without religious framing, these dreams feel meaningful, as though they belong not to the imagination alone but to some deeper wisdom within. One way to think about these layers, without needing literal interpretation, is to imagine them as reflections of your emotional state. If the heart feels heavy, the dream world gathers fog around it. If the mind feels balanced, the dream world becomes a familiar place shaped from memory. If the soul feels open, curious, or longing for connection, the dream may rise into bright, peaceful territory. In this way, the astral realms are not separate destinations, but subtle shifts in the atmosphere of dreaming. Emotions act like tuning forks, guiding which layer we drift into. A day filled with tension may pull the mind into denser landscapes, while a day of peace or gratitude may lift the mind into clearer ones. Even small choices before bed, breathing deeply, releasing worries, whispering a quiet intention, can influence the realm your dreams choose. It is not about control, but about resonance. The mind naturally settles into the layer that matches its emotional tone, just as water finds its level. Ancient traditions understood dreams not as hallucinations, but as journeys, soft travels of consciousness into different textures of inner experience. In these traditions, descending into heavy dream fog was seen as cleansing. Wandering through familiar dreamscapes was considered reflective, and rising into luminous realms was viewed as nourishing to the spirit. Even if we frame these experiences symbolically rather than literally, the language resonates because it captures something true about the emotional landscapes of dreams. Modern psychology, when softened from its technical language, can echo the same idea. It recognizes that dreams serve emotional processing, memory integration, and creative exploration. The metaphor of layered realms is simply another way of describing how the mind moves through different depths of feeling. The lower realms reflect unresolved emotions. The middle realms reflect the storytelling mind. The higher realms reflect moments of insight or peace. These layers are not external worlds, but internal terrains shaped by the mood, hopes, and quiet desires carried into sleep. What makes the astral metaphor so enduring is that many people intuitively recognize these layers from their own dreams. They can point to nights when the dream world felt thick and troubled, nights when dreams felt vivid and cinematic, nights when something gentle, luminous, or wise seemed to touch them. These variations feel too patterned, too consistent across cultures, to be dismissed as simple randomness. Even if one chooses to view these layers as poetry rather than literal geography, the metaphor can still illuminate how consciousness moves through the night. You're not simply asleep or awake, you drift through emotional climates, symbolic landscapes, and subtle moods. Each layer teaches something, holds something, reflects something that waking life may struggle to express. Eventually, as morning nears, these layers begin to fade. The fog lifts. The familiar dream streets dissolve. The luminous realms dim into memory, but the feelings remain. The heaviness that has softened, the insight that has brightened, the peace that lingers. The dreamer returns to the body carrying traces of these inner journeys, whether remembered or not. The astral layers in this gentle framing remind us that consciousness is not static. It is a traveller by nature, moving through internal worlds that shift with the tides of emotion. And each night, as you sleep, you journey through these soft landscapes, dense, familiar, or radiant, guided by the quiet music of your own heart. There are certain dreams that feel different from all the others. They do not fade quickly with the morning light, nor do they dissolve into fragments and confusion. Instead, they linger, carrying a quiet weight, as though something meaningful occurred while the body slept. Many people describe these dreams not as stories the mind created, but as encounters, meetings that feel intentional, personal, and strangely complete. Whether understood as memory, imagination, or something more mysterious, these experiences have been recorded in every culture, across every century, and in countless private journals never meant to be shared. One of the most common of these encounters involves dreams of loved ones who have passed away. These dreams often feel calm and vivid, marked by a clarity that differs from ordinary dreaming. The person appears as they once were, sometimes healthier, sometimes younger, sometimes simply peaceful. Conversation flows naturally. There is no urgency, no confusion, no surreal distortion. The dream feels less like a replay of memory and more like a quiet visit, as though the mind has stepped into a room where grief softens and connection resumes, if only briefly. Psychology offers one explanation, suggesting that such dreams help the mind process loss, reorganize emotional bonds, and integrate absence into the ongoing story of life. This explanation is both compassionate and reasonable. Yet many who experience these dreams notice something that goes beyond emotional comfort. The encounter feels mutual rather than imagined. The presence carries a sense of awareness, a feeling that the dream is happening with them rather than being projected onto them. The distinction is subtle but deeply felt. Across religions and spiritual traditions, similar encounters appear again and again. Ancient texts describe dreams as places where ancestors offer guidance, reassurance, or warnings. Indigenous cultures speak of dream time as a shared space where the living and the departed move freely. Mystical traditions describe teachers, guides, or luminous figures appearing in sleep, not to deliver dramatic revelations, but to offer simple truths: patience, forgiveness, courage, rest. These encounters are rarely theatrical. They're quiet, grounded, and deeply personal. What makes these dreams stand out is not their imagery, but their emotional tone. Unlike symbolic dreams, which often feel abstract or fragmented, encounter dreams feel direct. Symbolic dreams speak in riddles, metaphors, and puzzles. Encounter dreams speak plainly. They do not require interpretation. They are felt rather than decoded. You wake not asking what it meant, but knowing how it felt. Some people describe these encounters as learning experiences, like attending a gentle classroom that exists only at night. There are no desks or lectures. Learning happens through presence, conversation, or simply being near someone who radiates calm understanding. Insights arrive without force. Questions seem to answer themselves. The mind absorbs something quietly, without effort. These dreams do not feel like imagination working over time. They feel like moments of receiving rather than creating. From a softer scientific perspective, these experiences may arise when the dreaming mind enters a state of deep emotional coherence. When fear, stress, and distraction are absent, the mind can generate experiences that feel unusually stable and meaningful. Memory, emotion, and imagination align smoothly, producing dreams that feel whole rather than scattered. In this alignment, the dream no longer feels like a collage. It feels like a place. Yet even this explanation does not fully capture why such dreams feel different from ordinary ones. Perhaps it is because the dreaming mind, freed from external distraction, becomes more attentive, more receptive, less defensive. In this receptive state, consciousness may access layers of understanding normally drowned out by waking noise. Whether these layers belong to the psyche alone or extend beyond it is a question that remains open and perhaps should remain open. It is important to approach these encounters with balance. To dismiss them entirely risks ignoring the depth of human experience. To accept them uncritically risks losing grounding. The middle path, the one most aligned with gentle inquiry, acknowledges the experience without forcing an explanation. It allows room for wonder without demanding certainty. Across cultures, people have noticed that encounter dreams often arrive during periods of transition, grief, illness, major life changes, moments of deep questioning. When the mind is searching for orientation, sleep may provide a space where guidance feels accessible, not because answers are delivered from elsewhere, but because the dreaming mind is finally still enough to listen. Some encounters feel brief, like passing someone in a hallway. Others unfold slowly, with conversation and shared presence. And some are so subtle they barely register until later, when a phrase or image surfaces unexpectedly during the day, carrying with it a sense of reassurance or clarity that feels unearned but welcome. What unites these experiences is their emotional aftertaste. People often wake from such dreams feeling calmer, lighter, or quietly changed. The dream does not insist on interpretation. It simply leaves something behind, a softened grief, a renewed sense of connection, a gentle reminder that meaning does not always arrive through logic. These encounters do not happen every night, and they do not need to. They are rare not because they are fragile, but because they require a certain openness of mind and heart. They arrive when the dreaming world is stable enough to hold them, and when the dreamer is receptive enough to notice. Whether understood as memory healing itself, imagination offering comfort, or consciousness exploring deeper connections, encounter dreams reveal something essential about sleep. They show that the dreaming mind is capable not only of processing and creativity, but of tenderness. of meeting itself, and sometimes the image of others, with a compassion that waking life often forgets. And when morning comes and the body stirs, these encounters fade softly. The room returns, the day begins, but something remains like a quiet echo, a sense that during the night, consciousness touched something meaningful, something that does not demand explanation, only reflection. As the night continues its quiet unfolding, something subtle but profound begins to change. It is not the scenery of dreams, nor the characters that appear and fade, but the way time itself behaves. In dreams, time loosens its grip, moments stretch, hours collapse, entire journeys unfold in what feels like a single breath. You may wake with the strange certainty that you lived through an entire afternoon, a long conversation, or even a lifetime, only to glance at the clock and realize that only a few minutes have passed. This bending of time is one of the most curious features of the dreaming mind, and it offers a gentle glimpse into how consciousness measures reality when freed from the rhythms of the waking world. During the day, your sense of time is anchored by constant signals, the movement of light, the rhythm of conversation, the steady pulse of tasks and decisions. These external markers act like the ticking of a clock, reminding the mind where it is and how quickly it moves. But during sleep, those markers fade. The body lies still, the eyes are closed, the outside world grows distant, and without those steady cues, the mind begins to experience time not as a sequence of seconds, but as a flow shaped by emotion, attention, and meaning. In dreams, time stretches when experience feels rich. A single moment of fear may seem to last endlessly, while a peaceful scene may pass in an instant. This is because the dreaming mind measures duration not by clocks but by content. The more detail, emotion, and narrative a dream holds, the longer it feels. When experience is sparse or repetitive, time compresses. It is similar to waking life in this way. An hour in deep conversation can vanish quickly, while 5 minutes of waiting can feel endless. But in dreams, this effect is amplified. There have been gentle experiments exploring this phenomenon, particularly with lucid dreamers. In some studies, people who became aware inside their dreams were asked to perform simple actions, like counting slowly or making repeated movements, and then signal when they were finished. When compared with the passage of time in the waking world, the dream time often matched more closely than expected. This suggests that while dreams can feel dramatically longer or shorter, the internal sense of rhythm remains surprisingly consistent. The difference lies not in the speed of time itself, but in how memory records the experience. Memory plays a quiet but powerful role here. When you awaken, you do not remember every second of a dream. You remember highlights, key scenes, strong emotions, turning points. The mind then weaves these fragments together into a story, filling in gaps so smoothly that it feels continuous. In this way, a dream that lasted only moments can feel like a long journey, because memory compresses and rearranges experience into something larger than the original duration. It is not that time expanded during the dream, it is that memory reshaped it afterward. This reshaping is not a flaw, it is one of the mind's great talents. By compressing experience, the brain extracts meaning without burdening you with unnecessary detail. It keeps what matters, the feeling, the insight, the emotional tone, and lets the rest dissolve. This is why dream time feels elastic. The mind is less concerned with accuracy than with significance. There is also something deeper at work. In dreams, the usual sense of cause and effect loosens. Events do not always follow one another logically. Scenes change abruptly, locations merge. The absence of linear structure allows time to behave more like a landscape than a line. You move through it rather than along it. You may revisit the same moment from different angles or skip ahead without noticing. In this dream logic, time becomes more like weather, shifting, unpredictable, shaped by inner currents rather than fixed rules. This experience invites a quiet philosophical question. If the mind can reshape time so effortlessly during sleep, what is time really? Is it an external force marching forward no matter what? Or is it a framework the mind builds to organize experience? In waking life, time feels solid because it must coordinate shared reality. We agree on hours, dates, and schedules so that life can function. But in dreams, where reality is personal and private, time reveals its softer side. It bends, it folds, it stretches around emotion and meaning. Some thinkers have suggested that this reveals something fundamental about consciousness itself. Perhaps the mind does not experience time directly, but constructs it moment by moment, using memory and anticipation as its building blocks. During sleep, when anticipation fades and memory loosens, the construction changes shape. Time becomes less rigid, more fluid, more responsive to the inner world. This fluidity may also explain why dreams sometimes feel timeless, as though they occur outside of past and future altogether. You may dream of a place that feels ancient and new at the same time. You may meet someone who feels both familiar and unknown. In these moments, the mind is not tracking chronology. It is exploring presence, what it feels like to exist without the pressure of before and after. When you awaken from such dreams, the return to clock time can feel abrupt. The room is still. The light has barely shifted. Yet inside you carry the residue of a long experience. This contrast can be disorienting, but it also highlights how flexible consciousness truly is. The same mind that navigates schedules and deadlines by day can wander through elastic, dream-shaped time by night. Understanding this does not require equations or measurements. It simply asks you to notice, to remember how dreams feel, to reflect on how easily time dissolves when attention turns inward. Each night, without effort, your mind steps into a realm where time is not counted but felt. And perhaps that is one of sleep's quiet gifts. It reminds you that time, like consciousness, is not only something that passes, it is something that is experienced, shaped, and gently rewritten every time you close your eyes. There are some dreams that refuse to stay quietly in the past. They linger, not because they were vivid or emotional, but because something about them feels unfinished. Days, weeks, or sometimes even years later, a moment in waking life unfolds that mirrors the dream with unsettling clarity. A phrase spoken in the same tone, a scene arranged in the same way, an outcome anticipated before it ever arrived. These are the dreams people often call precognitive, not because they announce themselves as predictions, but because they carry a strange sense of recognition when reality finally catches up. Throughout history, people have quietly recorded such dreams. Abraham Lincoln once described dreaming of walking through the White House and discovering a body lying in state, only to later face a national tragedy that echoed the dream's imagery. Before the Titanic sank, there were accounts, some written, some shared later, of passengers and observers dreaming of a great ship in distress. Most dreams do not carry this weight. Most dissolve harmlessly into memory, but a small number stand apart, marked by an intensity and coherence that feels different from ordinary dreaming. It is important to approach these stories gently. The human mind is exceptionally good at finding patterns, especially in hindsight. When something significant happens, memory reshapes itself around the event, highlighting similarities and softening differences. Many dreams feel prophetic only because reality gives them new context later. This does not diminish their emotional impact, but it reminds us to move carefully, without rushing to conclusions. Yet even with this caution, there remains a quiet mystery. Some dreams contain specific details that seem unlikely to arise from coincidence alone. A location never visited, a conversation that unfolds almost word for word, a situation imagined long before there was any conscious reason to expect it. These dreams do not feel symbolic, they feel informational, and it is this quality that keeps the question alive. How could the sleeping mind glimpse something that has not yet happened? One way to explore this question is to reconsider how time itself behaves in the mind. In waking life, time feels like a straight road, past behind you, future ahead. But as dreams have already shown us, the mind does not always experience time in a straight line. In sleep, moments stretch, collapse, repeat, and rearrange themselves freely. This suggests that consciousness may not be bound to time as rigidly as the physical world is. Some thinkers describe time not as a line, but as a woven tapestry. In this image, past, present, and future exist as threads laid out together, intersecting and influencing one another. During waking life, attention moves steadily along one thread, creating the sensation of forward motion. But during sleep, when attention loosens and the mind turns inward, it may brush against other threads, possibilities, potentials, outcomes that have not yet unfolded in the physical world. The dream does not see the future as fixed, but as one of many paths gently glowing in the distance. This idea does not require equations or complex physics. It simply asks us to imagine time as layered rather than linear. In such a structure, information does not only travel forward, it can echo, resonate, or leak across layers under the right conditions. Sleep, with its quieted senses and softened boundaries, may be one of those conditions. Another way to understand precognitive dreams is through the lens of sensitivity. The sleeping mind may be exceptionally good at detecting subtle patterns, small changes in behaviour, unspoken tensions, probabilities forming quietly in the background of life. While awake, these signals are drowned out by noise and distraction. During sleep, the mind listens more closely. It connects dots without needing to justify them. A dream that feels predictive may simply be the mind assembling pieces long before conscious awareness catches up. There is also the phenomenon of synchronicity, moments that feel meaningfully connected without a clear cause. A dream of a long-lost friend followed by an unexpected message from them the next day. A dream of a place never visited, later encountered by chance. These moments do not behave like predictions. They feel more like echoes, as though time briefly folded in on itself, allowing two moments to rhyme. Most dreams are not precognitive. They're emotional processing, memory integration, imagination at play. But some dreams announce themselves differently. They arrive with clarity. They resist distortion. They linger without explanation. People often remember exactly where they were when they dreamed them, even decades later. The mind seems to mark them as significant, setting them apart from the usual flow. Why might this happen only rarely? Perhaps because accessing such information requires delicate balance. Too much emotion clouds perception. Too little awareness loses coherence. The mind must be calm, open, and quietly attentive. Sleep, particularly the deeper and more vivid stages, sometimes provides this balance naturally. The dreaming consciousness floats between control and surrender, receptive but not overwhelmed. It's also worth noting that the future is not a single destination. It is a field of possibilities shaped by countless choices and chance events. A dream may glimpse one possible outcome, not because it must happen, but because it could. When reality later aligns with that possibility, the dream feels prophetic. When it does not, the dream fades quietly, unnoticed. This perspective allows us to hold precognitive dreams without fear or certainty. They are not warnings etched in stone. They are impressions, soft impressions, of a world still in motion. They remind us that consciousness may be more flexible than we assume, capable of touching moments beyond the immediate present without fully grasping them. As morning arrives and the mind returns to linear time, these dreams settle into memory. Some will be forgotten, some will resurface years later with startling clarity, and some will remain unresolved, quiet companions to the mystery of how deeply the mind can reach. In this way, precognitive dreams do not demand belief, they invite reflection. They ask us to consider whether time, like consciousness, may be less rigid than it appears, and whether sleep offers a brief window into that hidden flexibility, where the mind listens not just to what has been, but to what might be. As sleep carries the mind deeper into its quiet explorations, there are dreams that feel uncannily consistent, places you have never visited while awake, yet somehow recognize instantly. Streets you have walked many times in dreams but could never find on a map. Buildings with familiar corners and impossible geometry. Cities that return again and again, unchanged by time, as though they exist independently of your imagination. These dreams leave a lingering question behind them, a gentle curiosity that does not demand an answer but invites wonder. Where do these worlds come from? Some people describe these recurring dream landscapes as if they were neighbouring realities, visited only at night. The details remain stable across years. The atmosphere feels coherent. The experience is not symbolic in the usual sense. It feels navigational, as though the mind were travelling rather than inventing. When the dreamer returns, they know where things are. They remember paths. They recognise the skyline. This consistency is what gives such dreams their quiet power. They feel less like stories and more like places. One way to explore this idea without drifting into rigid belief is through a metaphor borrowed from modern physics, softened into something more human. Imagine reality as a vast house with countless rooms. In waking life, you spend most of your time in just one room, furnished with familiar objects, rules and routines. But when you sleep, the doors between rooms loosen. The mind wanders hallways it rarely notices during the day. Sometimes it peeks into a neighbouring room, not fully entering but catching a glimpse of another arrangement of furniture, another version of the same house shaped by different choices. In this metaphor, dreams become windows rather than destinations. They do not transport you permanently elsewhere, but they allow awareness to glance sideways at possibilities that normally remain out of view. The mind, freed from physical constraints, may explore versions of reality shaped by paths not taken. Different outcomes, different lives, different selves. These are not predictions or alternate universes in a literal sense, but imaginative explorations that feel grounded because they draw from the same core identity. This idea aligns naturally with dream logic. In dreams, contradictions coexist peacefully. You can be both yourself and someone else. You can recognize a stranger as family. You can live an entire life and wake up unchanged. The mind accepts these multiplicities without conflict. If there were ever a state suited for exploring parallel possibilities, it would be the dream state, where identity, time and space are already flexible. Some dreamers report encountering alternate versions of loved ones, people who look the same but behave differently, as though shaped by different histories. Others describe meeting versions of themselves who made different choices, who live in worlds both familiar and strange. These encounters often carry a quiet, emotional weight. They are not frightening, They feel contemplative, as though the dream is offering perspective rather than spectacle. From a psychological viewpoint, these dreams may reflect the mind's ability to simulate outcomes. During sleep, consciousness tests different versions of reality, not to predict the future, but to understand the present. By imagining alternate paths, the mind clarifies what matters, what values persist across scenarios, what changes and what remains essential. The dream becomes a mirror that shows not what could have been, but what defines you regardless of circumstance. Yet even this explanation does not fully account for the consistency some dreamers describe: the repeated cities, the stable landscapes, the feeling of returning rather than inventing. These details invite a more expansive interpretation, one that does not require literal belief, but allows for curiosity. Perhaps the mind, when unbound, explores patterns of meaning that extend beyond a single narrative. Perhaps consciousness has access to a wider field of possibility than waking awareness usually permits. In this sense, the idea of a multiverse does not need to be about infinite physical universes branching endlessly. It can be understood more gently, as a landscape of potential experiences layered within consciousness itself. Each dream then becomes a brief walk through one of these layers, a chance to feel what it might be like to stand somewhere else, to be someone else, without leaving the safety of sleep. These dreams often feel expansive rather than urgent. There is no sense of needing to act, to change the course of events. The dream simply unfolds, offering perspective. You wake with a softened sense of self, a recognition that life could have taken many shapes, and that the version you inhabit is only one expression of a much larger possibility space. Importantly, these dreams do not demand interpretation. They do not insist that they are messages or revelations. They simply exist as experiences, quiet, immersive, and strangely comforting. They remind us that identity is not fixed, that consciousness is capable of imagining itself into countless forms without losing its center. As with all dream phenomena, balance is essential. To treat these experiences as literal evidence risks turning wonder into certainty. To dismiss them entirely risks ignoring the depth of the inner world. The middle path allows them to be what they are, meaningful explorations shaped by a mind that is both creative and curious. Whether dreams truly glimpse other realities or simply explore internal possibilities may never be answered conclusively. But perhaps the value lies not in the answer, but in the question itself. Dreams invite us to loosen our grip on a single story of reality and consider that existence might be richer, more layered, and more flexible than waking life suggests. And so, night after night, consciousness opens its windows. It peers sideways into possibilities. It walks through cities that may exist only in the language of dreams, and in doing so, it reminds you, gently, without insistence, that the self you wake up as each morning is only one expression of a far larger, quieter universe waiting within. As the night begins to loosen its hold and the edges of waking life return, something curious happens. The dream world, so vivid, so immersive just moments ago, starts to fade. Scenes blur, conversations slip away. Entire journeys vanish as if they were written in water. You may wake with the clear feeling that you were just somewhere else, doing something important, only to find that the details dissolve the moment you try to grasp them. This forgetting is so common that it feels natural, even inevitable. But it's not a failure of memory. It's a quiet, intentional process, guided by a gentle gatekeeper within the mind. To understand this forgetting, it helps to remember that dreams do not unfold in the same memory system as waking experiences. During the night, the mind records dreams in a softer, more fluid way, like sketches drawn in sand rather than words written in ink. These experiences are rich in emotion and imagery, but light on structure. They are meant to be felt, not catalogued. And when morning arrives, the mind begins preparing itself for the practical demands of the day. In doing so, it gently closes the pages of the nighttime journal. This gatekeeping serves a purpose. Dreams operate under different rules than waking life. Time bends, identity shifts, space rearranges itself freely. If all of this flowed directly into waking consciousness with equal clarity, the boundary between worlds would blur. Daily life would feel unstable, crowded with images and emotions that belong to another mode of awareness. Forgetting, then, is a form of protection, not against danger, but against confusion. It keeps the world separate enough for each to function well. There is a part of the brain responsible for deciding which experiences become lasting memories. During waking life, this system is alert and active, stamping important moments with permanence. During sleep, however, it shifts priorities. The focus turns inward, toward emotional processing and pattern recognition. Dreams are allowed to pass through without being firmly anchored. This is why you can experience a dream that feels deeply meaningful, yet struggle to recall its details minutes later. The mind has absorbed what it needed, the emotional lesson, the creative insight, without preserving the entire story. Some dreams, however, resist this fading. They stay with you, sometimes for years. These are usually dreams marked by strong emotion or symbolic weight. A dream that carries grief, love, fear, or sudden clarity presses more firmly against the gatekeeper. The mind senses that something here may be useful later, and it allows fragments to pass through into waking memory. Even then, what remains is rarely the full dream. It is a feeling, an image, a phrase, a seed rather than the whole tree. The act of waking itself also plays a role. When you awaken abruptly by an alarm, a sudden noise, or a rush of thought, the gatekeeper closes quickly. The dream is cut off mid-sentence, leaving little time for memory to take hold. But when you wake slowly, lingering in the quiet space between sleep and awareness, the gate remains open just long enough for pieces of the dream to drift across. This is why people who lie still upon waking often remember more. They allow the two worlds to overlap gently before fully stepping into the day. This overlapping space is delicate. In it, the dream still hums faintly, like a melody heard from another room. If you move too quickly, the sound disappears. But if you remain still, eyes closed, body relaxed, the melody can be recalled. A scene returns, a sensation resurfaces. The mind reaches back across the threshold and retrieves what it can. Keeping a dream journal works not because it forces memory, but because it signals intention. When you write down dreams, even fragmented ones, you're telling the gatekeeper that these experiences matter. Over time, the mind responds by holding the gate open a little longer each morning. Dreams begin to linger, details become clearer, not because the dreams change, but because your relationship with them does. It is important to note that forgetting dreams does not mean they have no effect. Quite the opposite. The most powerful work of dreams often happens beneath conscious awareness. They soften emotional edges, reorganize memory, and explore possibilities without demanding attention. Even forgotten dreams leave traces. They influence mood, perspective, and creativity in ways that are felt rather than remembered. You may wake with a sense of calm or clarity without knowing why. The dream has done its work quietly and moved on. In this way, forgetting is not loss. It is efficiency. The mind keeps what it needs and releases the rest. It trusts that the deeper layers of consciousness will integrate the experience without burdening the waking self. This trust is part of the wisdom of sleep. Understanding this can change how you relate to dreams. Instead of chasing every detail or feeling frustrated when memories fade, you can appreciate the process itself. Dreams are not meant to be held tightly. They are meant to pass through you, leaving behind subtle shift rather than detailed records. When a dream wants to stay, it will. When it doesn't, it has likely already given you what you need. As you rise fully into the day, the gate closes softly behind you. The dream world recedes, not disappearing, but waiting. It will open again tonight, offering new journeys, new insights, new quiet work. And whether you remember them or not, those journeys will shape you in ways both gentle and profound. As the journey through sleep draws toward its quiet conclusion, we return gently to the place where every night begins, the moment just before rest, when the body softens and the mind begins to loosen its grip on the day. This moment, often overlooked, is one of the most receptive states of consciousness you experience. It is not fully awake, not yet asleep, but balanced delicately between the two. In this threshold, the mind becomes unusually open, like calm water ready to receive a reflection. And it is here that intention, when offered softly, can shape the tone of the night ahead. Sleeping with intention does not mean controlling dreams or forcing outcomes. It is not about commands or rigid techniques. Instead, it is an act of gentle orientation, like choosing a direction before beginning a walk without insisting on the exact path. The mind responds best to invitations, not instructions. A quiet thought held with sincerity can echo far more deeply than effortful concentration. This threshold state has been given many names, but its essence is simple. Thoughts slow. Images begin to rise on their own. The boundary between imagination and perception softens. In this space, the mind listens more than it speaks. A single phrase, something like, "Tonight, let my dreams be calm," or "Let me understand what I need to understand," can drift downward and settle into the deeper layers of sleep. It does not need repetition or force. It only needs clarity and gentleness. Breathing plays a quiet role here. Slow, unhurried breaths signal safety to the body. Each exhale releases the accumulated weight of the day. Conversations, decisions, worries, allowing the nervous system to settle. As the breath slows, the mind follows. Thoughts stretch out, becoming less sharp, less demanding. In this softened state, the emotional tone you carry into sleep often becomes the emotional landscape of your dreams. Emotional release before sleep is not about revisiting every detail of the day. It is about acknowledgement, noticing what lingers, naming it silently, then allowing it to rest. When emotions are acknowledged rather than suppressed, they tend to move through dreams with less turbulence. The night becomes a place of gentle processing rather than restless repetition. For those who wish to remember dreams more clearly, the practice begins not with effort, but with respect. Treat dreams as meaningful, even before you recall them. Upon waking, remain still for a few moments. Let the transition happen slowly. Often, a feeling or image will rise first, followed by fragments of narrative. These fragments are enough. Writing them down is not about preserving accuracy, but about signaling curiosity. Over time, this curiosity opens the gate a little wider. Exploring deeper dream states, lucidity, vivid imagery, or meaningful encounters also benefits from softness. Excitement, impatience, or expectation can pull you abruptly back into wakefulness. Calm curiosity, on the other hand, allows the dream to unfold naturally. If awareness arises within a dream, letting it be is often more effective than trying to direct it. The dream world responds best to calm presence. It is also important to approach sleep with a sense of safety. The deeper layers of dreaming, especially those that feel expansive or unfamiliar, are not places to rush into. They emerge naturally when the mind feels grounded and secure. Maintaining regular sleep rhythms, reducing stimulation before bed, and creating a peaceful environment all support this sense of safety. The mind travels farther when it knows it can return easily. Across history, many thinkers, artists, and scientists treated sleep not as an absence of productivity, but as a collaborator. They listened to what arose in dreams, trusted the quiet insights, and allowed the night to participate in their waking lives. This collaboration does not require extraordinary experiences, it simply requires attention and patience. Ultimately, sleeping with awareness is less about doing and more about allowing the body to rest without resistance, allowing the mind to wander without judgment, allowing dreams to come and go without grasping. In this allowing, something subtle happens. Sleep becomes not just rest, but relationship, a dialogue between conscious and unconscious, between effort and surrender. As you lie down each night, you're not stepping into nothingness. You're entering a vast interior landscape shaped by memory, emotion, imagination, and possibility. Whether your dreams are vivid or forgotten, symbolic or serene, they are part of a continuous movement of consciousness, one that does not stop when the eyes close. Sleep is not the absence of awareness, it is awareness changing shape, expanding beyond the narrow focus of the day, exploring inner worlds where time bends, identity softens, and meaning emerges quietly. Each night, consciousness journeys into these realms not to escape life, but to sustain it. And as morning returns, you carry something back with you, even if you cannot name it. A restored balance, a softened edge, a quiet readiness to face the world again. The night has done its work gently and faithfully as it always has. So when you close your eyes tonight, you're not leaving consciousness behind. You're allowing it to continue, deeper, wider, and quieter than before.